Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. I, female, 30, have been with my boyfriend Jason, male, 30, since I was 18, and he is the kindest, sweetest, most caring man ever. We both grew up poor and had to struggle a lot in our childhood, and because of that, we worked 10 times harder than everyone else to live a really comfortable life right now. I got a STEM degree that ended up getting me a six-figure salary, while Jason went a more unconventional route. He worked hard on becoming a YouTube educator about a real niche topic. Think thermodynamics or the like. And this was a tough job from the beginning. However, he worked on it so consistently and with so much passion that I did not doubt that he would be successful. At present, he has around 1 million subscribers and makes a lot of money through guest lectures and signings at events. He's even working on a book to make his subject more accessible to a lot of people. Mind you, Jason's doing all of this without a college degree, and people are inspired by his story. It's unconventional, but makes him happy and makes him money. At the end of the day, both of us are secure about our jobs and our relationship. However, this amazing place that I am in now came at the cost of my relationship with my parents, as they both simply refused to approve of our relationship. Back when I was a teenager, my parents condoned my relationship with Jason as something I would grow out of, and gave him no respect whenever he interacted with them. By this age, Jason was already working super hard on his YouTube channel, and it was clear that he didn't want to go to college, for several reasons, including financial. To my parents, this was a stupid move and made them completely discount him as a person. Of course, I didn't like this, and it led to some friction in our relationship. I guess they were hoping that I would get bored of Jason when I went to college, and then they could have a more suitable son-in-law. However, we were deeply in love, and still are, and decided to do long distance, and that made it clear to them that I wasn't going to leave Jason anytime soon. By the age of 22, Jason was earning a decent amount and had 200,000 subscribers on his channel. So, to be honest, my parents had no reason to say that he was a deadbeat anymore. But that just didn't fly with them. When he proposed after my graduation, they put their foot down and said that if I married him, I was no longer their daughter. This was a really tough time in my life because it felt like I was being forced to choose between the love of my life and my parents, and that was unfair. I remember that during this time, Jason went to speak to my parents alone to try and convince them and gain their blessing, but he got nothing but humiliation out of that whole exchange. He says that my dad called him an unemployed loser and threatened to call the cops if he ever went back to their house again. We stopped trying to include them in our lives, and they weren't at our wedding. This marked a long period of being NC with them, and our only family was on Jason's side. Right now, at the age of 30 and with a 3-year-old toddler, his name is Jamie, and he's an absolute sweet pea. With us, Jason and I were looking at moving into a house. Currently, we live in an apartment in New York City, but both of us are from Michigan, and we were thinking of moving back to the state. So we got down to house hunting and hired a broker to help us with the whole process. After a couple of months of bad finds, we came across a house that looked suspiciously like my childhood home on an online listing. After a bit more digging, we realized it was my childhood home. It was crazy, and at a really good price, too. We called our broker and immediately asked him to put in an offer, and the owners accepted it. In our excitement, we had just assumed that my parents had sold off the house, and this was the next batch of owners. However, when we got more details, we figured out that the sellers right now were my parents. Oh boy, it was going to be awkward. I wasn't ready to deal with it, I'll be honest. We immediately retracted the offer and started looking at other offers. Jason could tell that I was pretty beaten up about missing this opportunity, while my parents were assholes. A lot of my childhood memories are in the house. For Jason, too, it was where we used to hang out as teens and where our relationship started. To my surprise, he spoke to a lawyer and asked if there was a way to buy the house anonymously, and surprisingly, there was an option. All we had to do was make a separate entity called an LLC, and we'd be good to go. So, with that route in mind, Jason bought the house and surprised me after the deed was handed over to us, ergo, our company. It took a few months, but we made the move with our kiddo in tow. And oh boy, the day our U-Haul pulled up in front of the house, I nearly burst into tears. There was something magical about the way my kid was going to grow up in the same house that I grew up in. But my spirits were immediately crushed because I saw two similar faces in the driveway. My parents. Yikes. I guess they were here to welcome the buyers and show them around the property, but it was going to be an ugly meetup. As soon as we came into view, a shadow of recognition passed over my dad's face. Mom, who was standing there with a casserole to welcome us, literally fainted. The dish was strewn over the floor, and all three, four if you count a very confused Jamie, of us put aside the whole tension to take Mom back to the house and wake her up. Then, once things were calmer, the whole conversation got awkward. It started with idle chit-chat, and then they started to probe about how we could afford this house in the first place. From there, I couldn't help but gloat a little about our success, and that made my parents pissed. I guess they thought we were being insensitive about the situation. Dad even tried to take credit for the whole situation by saying that a hard life leads to hard work. I also knew the only reason they would be selling off this house was because of financial troubles, but they were still too proud to admit it. It was awkward, and they left as quickly as they could. From what they told me, they were still living nearby, just downsizing. After that incident, we didn't hear from my parents for a few months, and at that time, we spruced up the house. But one day we heard the doorbell ring and found my parents at the door. They asked to be let in and were kind of wondering how fancy the house looked. Then the conversation took a very ugly turn. They wanted us to loan them around $10,000 to see them through their financial troubles. Even getting that out of them was a chore because at first they said it was only fair since they sold the house for cheap. Then they dared to use my blood relation to them as emotional manipulation, and it was only after an hour of discussion that we got the truth. I did feel a little sympathy for them, but it wasn't enough to discount the fact that they had never had any involvement in our lives, and even now weren't offering an apology. Hell, they didn't even contact us when our son was born, but felt entitled enough to come to our door and ask for money when they needed it. I was calm but firm and asked them to leave. My mom burst into tears and said that they'll be homeless if we didn't help them out, but I wasn't hearing it. At that moment, I just felt annoyed and disappointed that they reached out to us over money instead of some kind of emotional closure. After they left, though, I did feel guilty about the way I acted. I know they're in the wrong, but am I as well? I know I don't want anything to do with them, but is that worth letting them become homeless? Update 1. Our time in Michigan has been fruitful, and I've been able to reconnect with some of my extended family who lives in the state. They had been in touch with us while we lived outside, too. Very few family members were on my parents' side when they disowned me. But living here has allowed me to catch up on a lot of family news. For example, my parents didn't just get priced out of the neighborhood as they claimed, they had made a lot of really extravagant purchases against everyone's advice. Also, they were nowhere near close to becoming homeless either, as a few of my relatives had been supporting them while they got back on their feet. Dad was also holding down the job after coming out of retirement, so the lies they had been telling me have at least cleared my conscience a little bit, along with the advice from you guys. Update 2. Okay, so Dad ended up calling Jason and trying to force him to send over some money. Jason showed me the text and I got to know what Dad had said on the call, and it was horrible. Basically, him just trying to bully Jason into sending over cash and saying that he would make our lives hell if we didn't. I leaked all of this to our family members and NGL. My parents are banished from the family now. They were already on thin ice with their reckless spending and their crap treatment of me. But this was the last straw. We also spoke to a lawyer about getting a restraining order put against them. Update 3. LMAO, guys, this is so funny. I can't even fathom it. Parents put a lawsuit against us for using an LLC and claiming it caused mental trauma. I guess they think they'll either win the case or we'll be too tired to fight it and just settle out of court. Little do they know I'm going to make sure this case is thrown out of court with all my might. Update 4. We won the case. Who would have guessed? The judge even laughed at their characterization of mental trauma and apologized to me for having such terrible parents. In the meanwhile, Jason and I have saved up a little to renovate the house, and a part of that might be because we want to rub it in my parents' faces. NTA, this is a classic case of narcissistic parents. It's like they can't see their wrongdoing at all, and I wouldn't give them a single penny until they acknowledge you and give you an apology. NTA, 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 NTA. I know what it's like not having people believe in me, and I feel for Jason here. I think if you have been in NC for so long, you should continue it despite living in the same area. It's been working so far. Let's keep it that way. Ha ha. Basically, I have a career and my own, very busy, life, and from time to time comes to visit me and live in my house. She has twins, both 10, male, and they are an unbearable menace. They have literally zero attention span. They have no interests. I have tried everything from trying to find something that interests them, e.g. programming in Scratch, watching movies, playing video games, etc. I've tried getting them to exercise, but in a fun, playful way, nothing. All they do for hours is jump around endlessly and watch TikTok videos and YouTube shorts. Obviously, I've told all this to my sister before, and I've recommended that the kids see a specialist because I believe this is somewhat concerning behavior. And I'm not the only one saying this, by the way. Their grades are massively suffering, and teachers have also recommended that they visit a specialist. My sister obviously does not help at all. She hasn't taken her children to visit the specialist. Whenever she visits me, she always dumps her children on me and then goes out for hours partying. She has broken up with her ex, 34, male, because he was abusive, and I was there for her and commended her for standing up to him. Yesterday, I couldn't take it anymore, and when she came to dump her children again, I told her that I'm simply too tired to watch after the children. She looked very angrily at me and said, "You're single and basically have no responsibilities other than your job. You can't be as tired as I am, so obviously you have to watch after your nephews." This angered me, and I basically told her to shut the frick up. I regret it now. And that she can't dictate whether I'm tired or not, and that I have a full-time job only to come home most of the time when she's around and watch after her children while she is out partying. She left after that and hasn't spoken to me since yesterday. I've spoken with my mother, 59, female, and she thinks that AITA and that I should apologize to my sister. While I want to apologize for my choice of words, I don't think that I should be saddled every day with my sister's children. Am I the a-hole? NTA. This is an attitude I am tired of, that because someone doesn't have children, that their time has no value. That only people with children are allowed to be busy or tired or whatever. And this happens both in personal and business spaces. Your time is just as valuable as hers is, whether you have kids or not. Also, you are not obligated to be her eternal unpaid babysitter service just because you are related to her. You were never asked if you wanted the kids, but you are expected to drop everything and take care of them at the drop of a hat. Basically, these are her kids. They are her responsibility. There will be times when she will have to either pay for a babysitter or just not go partying like every other parent. And if this is a problem for your mother can volunteer to babysit herself. Yes, your choice of words was unfortunate, but your sister hasn't listened to you when you were being polite. So you were left with no choice but to be rude. NTA. She chose to have those children. It's her responsibility to take care of them. I don't think there's a parent in this world who hasn't wished for some time off from their kids, but that doesn't mean we're going to get it. And invalidating someone else's life as lesser than theirs, oh, but you don't suffer like I do, you owe me childcare, is an absolutely foolish thing to do for someone hoping for a favor from someone else. Your mom should get off your case and instruct your sister in the fine art of self accountability instead, if she really finds it necessary to involve herself in this situation. NTA, you are under no obligation to babysit your nephews, and most certainly, you owe no one an apology for declining to do so. Your sister is being presumptuous if she thinks that her life choices are a reason for infringing on you. What she needs to do is to hire a babysitter from time to time. Or if it matters that much to your mom, she could volunteer to babysit. Next story. We had to temporarily move in with mother-in-law, and it sucks because she thinks she gets a vote on everything. She critiques my parenting, my marriage, how I dress. She doesn't even like the food I cook for my husband. It's really hard on our marriage and makes me want to get the frick out of here. Recently, my husband and I had a pretty big fight. I'm aware it is immature that we fought loud enough mother-in-law could hear, but I was just heated because he played a prank and squirted me with the hose through a window while I was using the toilet. And I felt so degraded and disrespected. Mother-in-law decided to butt in and tell us how much our marriage sucks. She said I'm so miserable and uptight that if she was married to me, she would cheat, and she feels bad for her son for having to be with someone so miserable. She said I should work on myself because no man is going to put up with that. I asked if she would like to be married to her son, and she just rolled her eyes. Now, I might be the a-hole here, but I said I actually don't think she would. If they were two random people who met on the street, she would 100% say he isn't good enough for her. I've seen the men she's with. Her standards are sky high, so she should shut the frick up. I could see my husband was mortified. I know he already has some insecurities. I then said I didn't want her advice because she cheated on her first husband. Mother-in-law told me to frick off and said I have no idea what happened in her first marriage. I might also be the a-hole because mother-in-law's stepkids heard this, and now they have more shit to talk about her. After they left, mother-in-law called me a misogynist and asked if I seriously thought her first husband never cheated on her, and said I need to mind my own business. Her husband also yelled at me about how I shouldn't be saying anything when I live in their house. NTA. While you automatically sign up for swallowing bullshit from in-laws when you move in with them, she clearly goes way too far. No one should accept anyone saying such things regardless of where they live. She opened fire, so then she also needs to put on her big girl panties and deal with it when you fire back. She asked for it. It's not like she's going to treat you better if you shut up. She'd gladly treat you as a free target practice, so I say, give as good as you get. Also, your husband shouldn't allow his mom to treat you this way. You shouldn't have to go against her. She's not your mom. She's his responsibility, and he should rein her in when she crosses big boundaries. I don't know why you live there, but I hope it isn't for long. It's not good for anyone's right mind to live around people treating you this way. Not to mention while your partner stands by and lets them, as if nothing is wrong. ESH. What the hell is this family dynamic? Why was your husband playing pranks in the first place? Are you all mentally 13-year-olds? Because that is the only scenario in which this series of events makes sense. Completely ridiculous. This is not how adults should be behaving. ESH. What kind of toxic hellhole is this? So much yelling and name-calling and just downright disrespect all around. I hope there are no kids around to witness this behavior. Oh, wait, you said stepkids overheard this insanity? So you all cannot even control yourselves when children are around. You are failing at adulting pretty bad. Stop acting like this and start working on yourselves. I don't even know if counseling can help, because you all need individual help first. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.